Rival Wave started in 2016 as a studio project in my bedroom studio. There was never a plan to put a live band together to play anything out, but I had the opportunity to record with some of the world's best session talent, including members of Pearl Jam, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Linkin Park, Alanis Morissette, Hans Zimmer's orchestra, among others. And that really kickstarted the project. So I took it to a producer friend of mine who said, I'll produce the record, but you have to put a band together. This is too good.
I met Joel through Kelly, who used to play bass for Rival Waves back in kind of the early days. I think Joel was planning on playing guitar, and then after one practice, he was like, hey, we should get another guitar player. I showed up at the next practice and never left.
He just called me up and said he had this wonderful idea for a new project, and he had some songs he had been writing.
For a while, Joel and I were the two constants. Then when Eric joined the band, he was pretty much a pretty constant, third member.
So we started playing the songs out live, and in 2018, we released our Transducer EP. And we were cursed or blessed with a rotating cast of rhythm section players. But luckily in late 2018, Eric, Mark, and myself got to meet Dave and Paul.
Oh man, I don't even remember. It's been a while. Yeah, it was kind of a cold call out of nowhere. He reached out and just kind of clicked and worked out.
Well, I met Joel playing with another artist. They had another bass player at the time, and at some point that person left, and Joel asked if I could sub, and I'm still here. So
Rival Waves finally had that solid lineup that we were looking for.
I think once the EP was out, Mark and I could really open up with the songwriting. I think there was a sense of like, hey, let's do this new record.
I brought a few songs pretty early on into joining the band that we started working on as the group. We kind of were like, we've been playing these tracks for probably 2 to 3 years, some of them. It's time to lay them down, actually try to make a record, something that's kind of a group effort.
The band called a meeting, and I was a little perturbed, like, oh, who's leaving the band now? But it was a great meeting. The band were kind of all bought in. They wanted an album that was more of a collaborative effort, that was more of a band album, and I said, let's go. And by summer 2019, we were making plans to record the album.
I remember having a lengthy conversation, I think with the whole band, about different producers.
We wanted to work with a really cool producer who had a lot of experience and had done some really great records that we all really liked. So Frenchie was an obvious choice, being from Austin.
So we were all aligned on working with Frenchie Smith, who is a great guitar player from 16 Deluxe and a Grammy Award-winning producer.
But I only produce superstars. My bands are the best bands in the world.
So I pitched it to him. I didn't expect to hear back from him, but within 3 days or so, we were having an hour-long conversation about our vision for the album. So he came to rehearsal in November 2019, and we call this pre-production, where a producer comes in, you go through the songs on the album, and producer takes notes, gives suggestions for arrangements, etc. And shortly after that, we were making plans to go into the Bubble, which is Frenchie's studio here in Austin.
we were well rehearsed before we recorded, which is good because it's expensive studio time, and you need to kind of know what you're doing when you get there.
That was a cool experience, kind of everybody kind of bringing their own energy and their own influences to what we were writing and what we were playing and how we were recording it, and just sort of turning it into this record that changed for me what Rival Waves could be.
We had a short session that we essentially got our sounds, and we got everybody at their station to perform as a live unit. And then the next day was probably a 14-hour day. We were able to just get more and more informed and exciting performances. That's a lot for me to keep up with. But if the band has got the bandwidth to throw down like that, it is not my instinct to hit the brakes.
We cut basic tracks, like drums, bass, and most of the guitars, for 14 tracks in 3 days. The band was on fire, ready to hit it from the first downbeat. But all credit to our drummer Paul Pignon, who ended every day in an ice bath due to the 16-hour marathon sessions. Dude was a champ. And then in January we start mixing. And as we're mixing, we start hearing rumors about this virus from the other side of the world.
I think we literally, our last mixing session for the album was like March 12th of 2020.
Meanwhile, Frenchie's telling us he wants us at his showcase at South by Southwest.
Seemed like there was a lot of opportunity about to come our way, which was pretty exciting.
And then it hits us.
And then, yeah, like all of that just went away really fast. The world's been full of challenges in the last 2.5 years, like at a macro level and a very personal level.
My mother passed away in December, like right after we recorded the album, with a long battle of cancer. Then pandemic hit.
It was just a question for years of like, is it cool to like go have band practice? So that sucked. I mean, it's not a very fun way to be in a band.
It was chaos personified. It was everything we'd been writing about on this macro level. The showcase got canceled, South by got canceled, all of our release plans got thrown out the window, and it was like, what do we do? We wanted to play this album out, and ultimately it just wasn't safe. So we decided to hit pause.
Yeah, we were just going through a lot as a band.
I had a mild stroke and lost some hearing, and things got difficult to do, walking, talking, working with my hands. And that was kind of scary. Like the thing that I love the most, you know, guitar playing or listening to music, like all that stuff kind of drastically changed. I was literally like doing major and minor scales on the guitar to just get that movement back again. So there was all these challenges that I had that I didn't know how to overcome.
Going into the recording of the album, right, was not too long after Joel's dad had passed away, which really provided a lot of like impetus to some of the writing for this record. And then, you know, moving later into, you know, the album had been done, but still trying to get it out. My dad also passed away, which kind of, you know, highlighted even more for me, like kind of the perspective of where Joel was coming from and writing some of this album. A lot of these songs take on new meaning for me, and like for me, performing them now is like a whole separate thing than it was kind of writing them or recording them, and kind of bringing all of that into it as well.
So everyone's dealing with their own personal situations, but we're still in a pandemic and we still don't have a release plan. So then in January 2022, we say, hey, let's release the record this year. That'll be great. And we start rehearsing again and have a couple of really good shows in May, a couple of really good shows in June, and start to get back to the place that we were in 2019, just a really tight rock and roll band. And we decide, okay, let's start making the plans to release this record later this year. And then I get sick. I get COVID and lose my voice for a month and a half. And am worried if I'm ever going to be able to sing again, because it's kind of what I do. And again, that sidetracked us once again. But now we're at the end of 2022, and we're at a place where we can move forward with a purpose. And the challenge now becomes reestablishing our footprint in the Austin music scene.
A lot of the regular venues that I play, like we have to have a relationship between the band and the venue, and playing regularly allows you to keep those relationships. I think that's been a little bit hard to get back into it, because the world and the Austin music scene has changed so much since we recorded the album. A lot of our favorite venues have gone under. A lot of management has changed. A lot of the way that venues book have changed.
Austin is a competitive market. The mood around music, I think, in the last 10 years has changed a lot. It's a lot harder to actually sell records, right? Streaming has changed that. Getting shows, getting people to come to shows, all of that is a ton of work.
We're 100% DIY, everything from merch to marketing. Being in a band takes a lot of perseverance. It takes a lot of thick skin. It takes wearing a lot of hats, managing logistics, managing calendars, managing your band. Booking shows is not necessarily calling up Stubbs and saying, hey, we want to play Stubbs on a Saturday night. There are just a lot of factors to getting a show. And we have to be very conscious of where every dollar is going to maximize our return on investment.
It's not inexpensive to record and produce a record.
And so you have to wear a lot of hats, and it's quite hard. But it's all worth it during that 45 minutes to an hour where you're playing your set to a full sold out show where folks are singing, your lyrics back to you. All the chaos, all of the work that goes into being in the band, that moment makes it all worth it.
For me, I definitely want this band to be expanding outwards, performing, regionally in other markets. So I think that performing side is long overdue, and that's something that I definitely want to see.
The money part of it isn't how I would define success. For me, it's just hearing back from people saying that said song meant something to them. To me, it's the outreach. Can we get it to people, and do people like it?
And I would say just getting out and playing the record, doing some live shows, getting people interested in the music. That to me would mean a lot, for the record to be well received.
I remember Frenchie saying, I've been waiting to record a record like this. Like I've been waiting a while.
Rival Waves and the band he was putting together was only going to help me in my lifelong goal of being a musical exhibitionist.
And I think the interesting thing about the album is he's dealing with a lot of pretty heavy topics, loss of loved ones, kind of political chaos.
We get very personal, but we step back and deal with chaos on a grand scope over the course of the album.
But I think despite sort of the heaviness of a lot of the subject matter, I feel like it's ultimately more of a hopeful record. To me, a musician, it's partially about playing the music and stuff, but it's also part of the effect that you can have on other people.
Touring and awareness and turning fans on, all of that in its place. We have 300 copies of a beautiful product. Hand-drawn art, Coke bottle clear, beautiful vinyl, handwritten lyrics on the liner notes. It's a gorgeous product because, pardon my French, but we weren't fucking around. If I don't have those 300 copies of this beautiful product sitting in my home by the end of 2023, that's a goal I'll be happy with.
I think the band really have, they absolutely have every ability to put out a fiery rock record that has worldwide significance and is Grammy worthy.
I think just already the pride that I feel in the album that we made, and just the fact that we were all able to work together to make this album, in a way, it already can't fail. But I think with all of the challenges at the end of it, music is the solve, right? Music is the place where I think all of us are turning to sort of deal with those things, our frustrations, our sadness, our, whatever it is, right? Our anxiety is just sort of you can play, you can write, you can listen, and music just kind of helps with all of those things.
So a Meaningless Chaos really is a choice. Are you going to let these forces win, or are you going to wake up and fight to keep the wolves at bay?